The first tap of a conductor's wand. The first rivet in a mile-high tower. The master link at the genesis of the never-ending chain. The moment a single empty canvas meets a singular master stroke. There is no one thing. Because now, there are many. Because soon, there will be more. Because one is ever the beginning. Like the first link in an infinite chain, or the first rivet in the tallest skyscraper. The master stroke is found in the masterpiece. What will you begin?
All right, everyone, welcome to episode 42 World Blockchain Roundtable. Our hosts for today are Greg from Rivet, Dave from Din.social, Satoshi Sean, everyone's friend, and I'm Joe, architect founder of Dragonchain. Quick update on the WBRT layer ownership tokens distribution from last week's episode. Each host from last week will receive 222 lot. Every topic contributor will receive 33 lot. We had to think about whether we want to call those something special other than just a lot. You know, like WBRT lot. I mean, is there anyway? We have to figure that out. Maybe a WBRT DAO or something like that. Either way,
I was thinking about that too for a couple of other layers on DIN. Speaking of lot.
Yeah, naming conventions. I don't know. So anyway, that's a good thing to think about. Let's see here. The ownership tokens. Those actual tokens come with perpetual passive income, free edits, and governance votes, which dictates the whole format of this. Let's see here. So if we go into WBRT governance issues, there's nothing in there right now. I just talked to the team earlier that we should put one in to see if we want to have someone else intro and outro the show or rotate or something else. Might be fun. If you guys are so willing. But anyway, just so that people don't get so bored with my droning voice and stuff. Current events. What do you guys want to talk about? Current events. There's nothing going on in the world, right?
There's an obvious one, right? The crypto order got released.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? What do you mean?
Well, a suggestion to create orders, I think, got released is what it was, right?
Yeah.
Guidance saying that, yes, we will make orders, I guess, as a whole of government. I think that's what I got out of it personally, it was the first time that I've seen officially, okay, we're going to take a whole of government approach and stop being a bunch of different, departments fighting over the same thing. That's, to me, cool. All right, I like that. The rest of it, I don't know. We'll see. I'm skeptical, but hopeful.
Yeah, I think the language is what I like. Like, hey, this is like Joe's been saying till he's been blue in the face. This is brand new innovation. This is going to bring jobs to your districts. This is money to the United States. Why won't you people, grasp this? I think that was kind of, it's like, hey, this is the next level. This is what we need to be good at this, or we're going to be left behind.
Yep. And yet, if you look a little bit into the details of some of that language, I think there is a potential risk of snake in the grass about this whole thing, because you saw one thing consistently throughout all of the clauses in it, right? And it's this notion of, quote, responsible innovation. If you look into that, like if you actually Google that phrase in quotes, what you mostly end up with respect to finance is the OCC's concept, the Office of the Comptroller of Currency's concept of that, which links out further to a paradigm called responsible innovation, which is mostly attempting to or claiming to circumvent the old tried debate between preemptive regulation and permissive openness, right? And what it claims to do is form a middle way in which a public-private partnership fosters innovation responsibly, which, what does that mean, right? Like, what is responsible? Is it responsible to permit the financial system to continue as it has? Is it responsible to disrupt and eliminate the need for third-party middlemen who are only sensible to
See, that's
regulators
why
if
I'm
they continue
skeptical,
to
Greg,
exist.
is exactly that kind of thing, is how you interpret what was said. I'm going to bring up, I don't know if the shape's going to work because it's on my my portrait mode, like tall screen, but this I kind of laid out how I felt about this, if you don't mind me just reading that real
go
quick.
ahead.
I think it applies. I said, I don't know, this looks like a mixture of bad and potentially helpful to me. And then I quoted some of the words I kept seeing in the document: reduce this, protect that, mitigate stuff. Which, okay, mitigate bad stuff, but who's saying what's bad, right? And then a single small paragraph about how the U.S. will support new tech. Skeptical, but I do like the priorities of privacy, security, and mitigating impacts of climate change. So that's kind of my take on it, I guess.
My fear is that what we're going to end up with is this notion that the OCC's specific version of responsible innovation, which is essentially to pair chartered traditional banking entities to the technology companies and anchor the decision making to the chartered entity, to say our middlemen, in fact, are going to have veto power over everything you do. Otherwise, we're going to call it irresponsible.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. It's anytime you have, I mean, it's so funny because I remember in the early Bitcoin days that everybody said, well, we need regulation. And, I would debate that with people, friends, neighbors, things like that. That's the whole point of this, is that the regulated entities are essentially enslaving the people. It's all, it's all obviously immoral action. I mean, the banks, everybody's been screwed over. Most everybody's been screwed over somehow by a bank in the past, and there's no recourse. And yet there are all these consumer protection laws that really aren't consumer protection laws. And you, anytime that they're, this is, I think, essentially what those people who called for regulations in the early days of Bitcoin, why? They wanted the number to go up. That's all they wanted. It's like, I want it to be worth more, so we need to be regulated, not thinking about the actual purpose of it, which I think is much more valuable than some, I don't know. I'm not too much in favor of false economies or, fake.
Right. Well, what I wonder is there any real innovation at all to blockchains if what we do is comprehend their responsible use as taking away their primary value add? Like, why not just use a regular database if you're going to say that there have to be middlemen still?
Yep. I will tell you, it's just a little part of the much bigger picture that I will say isn't just the banks. It's not just the government. It's not just some of those senators. It's not just the powers that be. You have a lot of crypto people right in there with them, leading the charge on that, which is dangerous. That ignoring, and you're talking about Bitcoin, you're talking about other currencies, ignoring the purpose that they even exist. Number one, which isn't just decentralization, by the way. It is also scarcity. You could say, hey, I have a non-decentralized currency, but and it'd be hard to do, but the fact that the scarcity is what's important, because that's what is broken with money today in the real world.
And scarcity plus immutability, sans centralized control is what gives you trust in that notion.
Right. But the bigger picture, though, is then you have people like me over here saying, look, I'm a software guy, and yet I was amazed with Bitcoin primarily because the mining operation was so unique and interesting to someone who knew how, at least a little bit about how money works and stuff. And yet my task was to use it in ways that have nothing to do with currency, or at least little. Currency's there, but the main feature of it is trying to expand its
other examples of the Byzantine generals problem.
Yeah, and they whoever the hell they is, it's all those groups, all of which can't really necessarily be itemized, but that they are still trying to fit it into the one thing they know. So if you talk to a securities lawyer, that's a security. It's like, wait, it's software. And you're like, I don't know anything about software. I just know this. And yet everything's being funneled into that one. So it's like,
they're aggressively defending the notion of functional fixedness as a public good, which is nonsense.
It makes sense because that's where they have their choke control. They already have all this infrastructure set up to control. So we wanted to fit into that. And that's the thing that we need to avoid just walking blindly into, because that's going to kill the whole thing.
Now, that said, I don't think they're unamenable to the discussion. I don't think they're unamenable to the discussion. We just have to realize that it's there. Otherwise, they're going to have it.
That's my
without
point.
having.
That's my main point. Guess what? You're gonna have the I'm not gonna say, what would you even say? The influential, which is gonna be all the big VCs, like what's his name with the big eyebrows that bought this, very smartly bought the Bitcoin from the government. Right? You're gonna have those guys, which they're not evil, but they only think about the monetary side of it. You're gonna have those guys making the deals with the government, and any other consideration is going to be out. That's why I'm saying we have to make sure that we are. Sounds cheesy, but you have to be inclusive conceptually. You have to have it. You have a lot of uses for this tech, and if we go straight in and say, "Look, we got the deal," which means Bitcoin's going to be in the seven figures, it's going to screw the whole thing.
You know, I've seen those tweets that this is it. This is what does it this year, 2022, $100,000 Bitcoin. But you're talking about Tim Draper, and he would be the worst, one of the worst people for you to use for an analogy there. When it comes to those number go up guys, he probably is one of the ones that cares about tech the most.
I started saying he's not evil, but do you think because I met him in an airport once. Do you think Tim Draper understands enough about the tech? No, he's a money guy. He understands the investment side. He might care about the tech because he knows how it influences his investment. He doesn't necessarily understand all of the uses of blockchain. He knows,
that is one thing, and you kind of opened a little can of worms here. The people that have been in the number, even the number go up guys, but the ones that have been in from the beginning stages, I think are different than the ones that have come in the last year and the ones that are going to come
I'm not talking the last year. I'm talking about, you're talking 2010 to 2014 versus anybody after.
I think those guys have a soft spot in their heart, and they do. I think they're completely different animals than the monsters that have come in the last year.
Yeah, I would say that to a certain degree, venture capitalists are, or at least especially the early in ones, are cut from a kind of, radical resistance to the limits of the traditional.
Yeah, and you can't be in this space that long and not be affected. It's just the truth. I mean,
but they will say that
you're going to get leverage.
You can have people that are still maximalist Bitcoin, and that came in. I don't know where Draper fits, right? I don't know enough about him, but I'm just saying the VCs care about it for literally it's an investment, and I want to make the money. If I can do something that is detrimental to the origin philosophy of it, I don't give a shit, because I am only here to see that number go up so I can exit. That's why they're there. And you have to make sure that you think about the technologists and the people who are trying to build things in the future. And I'm not just talking about me. There are thousands of people like that. It's all going to be ignored. And some of them might not care because they'll get rich. But it's just an interesting thing. I think much like a lot of the things that they've tried to do to make the number go up and make it more established in the traditional markets, I think has actually caused the number to not go up as much as it would have. I mean, the volatility, I think you'd already have a $250,000 Bitcoin if a lot of the things hadn't happened in the few years ago.
It's just we're dropping names about VCs. When I came out of the doctor the other day, I had a text from Mr. Ashton Kutcher.
Really? A text?
Yeah, I did. I was like, it's hilarious though, because I didn't know like the stuff that he's been doing philanthropy wise. And I've been trying to talk to him about crypto and stuff because he has this huge VC, firm that he owns. So we come out of the doctor and I'm like, oh wow, I got a text from Ashton Kutcher. My kids are like, Dad, what are you doing that has to do with human trafficking? I'm like, what?
You know what? The first thing that you mentioned that name is like, wait a minute, Sean.
I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Are you doing anything that has to do with human trafficking? I was like, first off, why would your mind go there first? No.
That's a lot of work.
That's what Ashton Kutcher does. That's all he does.
There's hope for the world, guys.
Yep.
I said, no, he has a VC firm, and he bought crypto like way in the beginning. He's been giving millions of dollars. Like,
he had a love affair with John
get
McCain.
money
Too, Sean.
to
Do you know
stop human
that?
trafficking.
Humtraf. Decentralized human trafficking.
We don't want to go into any of that
Heard it
stuff,
here
right?
first.
But his association with McCain and his association with some of the oddly Ukrainian thing, oddly enough, your kid's on top of stuff, Sean. That's all I have to say. It's
I was like,
crazy.
what are you? I mean,
You're like the red pill king. You don't know this?
I guess it rubs off on them. They just think I'm insane, but you know.
Hey, can we actually talk? There's one other current event that was super important that and mostly for the purposes of censorship, or what was likely to be upcoming censorship, which is the biolab question. And I wish I had the post to just share. I didn't have time to find it again. And Anon posted. It was super interesting because I don't have cable anymore, right? So they talked about how Tucker Carlson did an entire hour show on these biolabs and like we have to figure out what is up. Why does the U.S. have genetic engineered bioweapons labs in the Ukraine? Okay, and then Hannity right after him, the next segment for an hour, talks about how you guys all need to shut up about the U.S. biolabs in the Ukraine. And if you're talking about them and you believe they're real, then you're essentially a traitor and a Putin lover, right? So it's just this crazy thing going on. And the reason it was so surprising to me is, you have to take everything as a grain of salt. It's posted anonymously. But there was they started talking about these biolabs like a week or two ago, like right at the outset of the war after the Russians moved in. And one of the things that popped up, and I was like, is that real? Was an Air Force requisition calling for, they wanted RNA and tissue samples from various populations. And one of the public questions was, can we use Ukrainian? Because if they were Ukrainian labs and they would be right there, they could just have people come in or something. And it said, no, these have to be Russian Caucasian. And you're like, so you're thinking about, I know from a decade ago that, that whatever came out was either leaked or otherwise about the genetic weapons, where essentially you can say, hey, before we go into a battle, we're going to have this bioweapon that will only kill the other guys. And we just have to make sure if we have anyone with that genetic background that they're not on the battlefield. That's the type of evil, literally genocidal warfare that you're talking about. And that's scary as hell. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I've seen James Bond movies. My wife and I watched that one recently where they had the genetic weapon that was used only against a certain baddies kind of thing, but then it got misappropriated, as they do, to be used against the good guys. Oh, darn. And it was one of those, it was a movie, right? It was a shark jumping film, but it was also, I thought, pretty good, like a lessons learned kind of thing. Like, hey, just because your government is trying to do something good doesn't mean that these tools can't get repurposed for something else.
Well, and somebody on 4chan would say that was just what do they call that, Sean? Where they have to expose. And this is the tinfoil hat stuff, but they have to say what they're doing in order to morally be okay doing what they're actually doing. So they have to make it out there so people, I was like, oh, if you're stupid enough to not, pay attention, then it's okay if we kill you.
I remember a show called Choice, and they had developed, it was like a pulse thing that would kill everyone from a family. You could even bring the genetic line down to a family because there was like a ruling class. So they made it to basically, kill the ruling class. But like Dave said, they just change it and they can kill whoever. But that when it comes to like sci-fi, which I'm a huge, sci-fi buff, that's always the weapon of conquerors, because you just kill people. There's no collateral damage. There's no building damage. You don't even harm, trees. It's just wiping people out, and you move right in. It's not an offensive thing. It's nothing. It is straight up, like you said, genocide and a weapon of conquerors.
Who used to watch Firing Line with Buckley? I remember the debates about the neutron bomb, and I asked my dad, what is, it's like, oh, it's unethical because it just kills the people and leaves the buildings, right? And it's just such an interesting thing, but it's not unethical if we have regular nuke bombs.
Or EMP, right? Like the EMP kills the equipment but leaves the people.
Yeah, it's like you could. It's like they have their weapons, I guess.
To answer your question earlier, though, Joe, I think the reason that they would be in Ukraine is for the same reason that we have Gitmo in Cuba. You can't do that shit here. You know, there's a lot of things like you can't torture people in the US.
Oh yeah, and we have agreements with others.
And they
Like
buy weapons, so we do it, you know, in X location that we have a friendly relation with.
Yeah,
so that's just how shit works. That's how the U.S. doesn't like to admit to it, but they have, and it's documented. It's just kind of the way that we pretend like, you know, we're not doing bad as long as we don't do it on our own soil.
Well, and on the flip side, and on the flip side, that's why you have to. And you know, I mean, you can call me a traitor if you want, but you have to think about the fact that if Russia had a partnership or some other special relationship amongst the senators and the powers that be with Russia, with Mexico, and they had biolabs in the north of Mexico, we would have a concern with that, right? I mean, it's pretty obvious.
You're absolutely right. Like if you know, think about what happened when Russia showed up on our doorstep in Cuba with nukes.
That's at that point starting to be made. But what I'm seeing is this rhetoric just after 9/11. I remember being a kid back then, and the Dixie Chicks said George Bush is the dick or whatever, and their career was over. They were destroyed. They were a pariah, because they said that the president was an asshole. And I'm seeing that now, like you said, literally, one show can go on where Carlson can talk about stuff, and then right after him, he's followed and he's denounced, and basically, you're a lover of Putin. Everyone that makes any kind of not even I'm worried about saying it. Anyone that shows a counterpoint to why, you know, a reason why Russia would have some kind of viable reason to be nervous and to be unhappy, or to point out that America does this all the time,
right?
Or that Western nations do this all the time. They're immediately attacked, or they have to like preface it for 5 minutes.
Disclaimer.
Caveat.
Yeah. You know? A 5-tweet disclaimer before I say this one thing, because I only have so many words.
We broke our agreement. NATO broke its agreement. The United States broke its agreement. We said NATO would not expand at all. NATO expanded like a mother. I mean, under Clinton, under everybody.
Right. And we had fucking Max Boot and
if we got Ukraine, it's literally just like Cuba. And we were going to destroy the world. Kennedy was going to blow. You've seen all the movies. Everything's been released. Kennedy was going to kill everyone and destroy the planet if they moved into Cuba, and they backed down. And we were doing the same thing. We were about to move. We could move nukes into Russia's Cuba, even closer than Cuba is. And Russia said no, and they could have threatened like we did, you know, but they moved in and they're like, no, they want an agreement. And that's another thing. They've changed their demands. They're no longer asshole big bad Russia. They're like, those demands have dropped to just we want them to not join NATO. We want certain agreements. That's all. And the media is not covering it. It's not bringing it up.
Follow up real quick on the disclaimer thing, you know, this is kind of a conversation that I would imagine like you wouldn't have this controversy if we were talking 20 years, 40 years in the future in a historical context. Here's what this side did. Here's what that side did. Classroom setting. Maybe here's the justification from their point of view. Here's how maybe they see it. Right.
You're in Switzerland.
We can talk about the Gulf of Tonkin incident now and acknowledge the fact that we staged a fake attack so we could go into Vietnam. We can talk about that now. Back then, but that was a crazy conspiracy theory.
The same way,
relevant,
and it is increasingly seeming like a few episodes or so ago, there was a term that was coined. I think it was what was it, Greg? Weaponized wokeness or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit too like I don't like the phrase exactly because it comes with like some disses and stuff, and it's probably something to bake into that. But there is something going on where humans are so like think about how short of a time it's been since we've had this feed of data in our faces, like this programming of any stream we look at all day, right? And so it does increasingly seem like people are clumping up into personal armies, right? Like you know how 4chan always says not your personal army when somebody comes in and wants people to get outraged at this person now, right? I don't know if they still do, but it used to. It was like not your personal army.
Yeah.
So now it's kind of like, okay, this is your personal army, and if you are the right person or the right group of people,
and that's why it's
trigger people.
Right. Well, I mean,
yeah.
The thing that bothers me about all of this is that the same people who were behind the WMD lies post-Iraq or pre-Iraq and post-Patriot Act and pre-Patriot Act, these people like fucking, you know, Max Boot, Bill Kristol, Crazy Pants Brigade, who invented this idea that in the absence of, you know, the Cold War enemy, the only way to maintain a world that is sensible to U.S. power is to constantly wage wars on either ideas or people or countries. Like, we've just been doing the same damn thing over and over again. And the same people are, like, if you look into the heart of this thing, like the same person who is behind the communication strategy for Iraq is behind the communication strategy for Ukraine because she's in charge of it. Right. Like we literally we promoted these people.
And that is totally why, because you know, the war against drugs, the war against terrorism, none of these had any actual real meaning. It was literally just a machine to churn through blood and treasure. That's all it is. Why? Because they're taking a portion of that treasure out, and maybe the blood too, who knows? But it's essentially an offering of our populations. And you know, go look at the Georgia Guidestones. That literally is them saying, this is what we want to do. And it's vague, but it's in every goddamn language. So if you can't read it, it's not our fault. We're going to do this. They want to reduce the population, and it's all plugged in.
Look at what else.
And all they do is they divide. So this is important. Anytime you see something's like, oh, those people are evil, right? Or it's like McDonald's and Coke pulling out seriously? Like the Russians can't have McDonald's now. It's just ridiculous.
As it turns out, there's a bunch of crazy assholes at the top of this system who want us all to fight each other, and we're all pretty much goddamn the same. Like
the people don't want
regular people out there are just fucking regular people, and if we could speak their language, we'd see that.
You know, I think there's one thing about wokeness that when I look at it today, I think that it has helped, because the worst thing in the world. I mean, you could literally, and this is not a joke, you could be a pedophile, and it's not as bad as being racist. You know, when it comes to, because you know, if you're just attracted to children, and there's different terms now, and pedophile is actually, I think USA Today said that it was I want to say racist to pedophiles. It was offensive to pedophiles.
What about a racist pedophile?
But that's
like literally using their pedophilia.
But my point is now, like, to be called racist, it's just a terrible thing. That was the basis for wars. I mean, I remember watching Gomer Pyle when I was a little kid. It was, you know, black and white, and they were talking about, they're, you know, using slangs, you know, and killing these people. I also thought that snipers were a race of people. I didn't know how much you got to kill the sniper.
They are.
So, but he was talking about, you know, Asians and how they were taught they're, you know, inferior people or just racism. The terms were used. Same with, you know, Germans and all that. But you have to dehumanize people.
Yeah.
In order for a regular human being to kill them, because we just don't want to kill each other. That's just a basic thing.
Right.
And I think that that racism with wokeness has become so feared and knee-jerk that we don't even say the N-word. It was on TV when I was a kid, and we don't say the N-word. So now, if you're going to try to paint the Russian people as like the same old, like they're doing, that, oh, they're just all bad. You know, they're inferior, they're different. It's not going to fly. Right. And people, like you were saying, people just don't want war anymore.
Yeah,
right.
Everyone's tired of it.
Another interesting point on the N-word, Sean. Remember when the A ending was acceptable for all people to use?
I watched. You know what I watched? I watched The Jeffersons the other day, first episode, and this was the most progressive, most like out there. Oh my God, this is on TV. This is because it was black person in moving on up and all that, and they used the N-word like 4 times in the end of the show, and it was a white couple, or no, it was a white guy married to that black woman, which was like so insane, and George was like, "You guys aren't the same, blah blah," because when you're fighting, you are always thinking that N-word better shut up or something. And the dude said about his wife, "I would never say that." He goes, "But you think it?" He goes, "Well, I have thought it." And his wife was like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, you think I should smack this cracker." And then she could say cracker, but not that word. And then she was like, "I have thought that too." And they're like married. And it was like, ha 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 ha. But we love each other, even though we're kind of racist. It's fine. And I was like, I was watching this when I was like 4.
It's weird that was on TV, but I do like inappropriate jokes with my wife sometimes too about like, she's German, I'm an American kind of thing. She grew up in, East Germany pre like while the wall was still up, that kind of thing. So we have, like we're not different. Like, I don't know. That's acceptable, but the racial thing, yeah.
Just that's really weird. I growing up as a kid, I didn't think of those people as German.
Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah. So, you said something about like Asians and stuff. My grandfather taught me that. Like when I was younger, he was in Vietnam as a mechanic or something, or I don't know why he was over there. Anyway, I was starting to say some racial slurs and stuff about Vietnamese people because I was reading books that were written by soldiers where they used these words to describe people, and that's just how they were taught. It's the same thing. It's like it's just words people use to dehumanize people because otherwise you would feel bad for killing them. Something. I'm like, oh, okay, thanks, Grandpa.
Yeah, the Z word, and I don't even know what all like. There's so many different ones, and they always do it.
Definitely have. We have this, and I didn't think of it this way until Russia invaded Ukraine, and you saw the economic damage that was directed on Twitter. A lot of it, even like the state of Ukraine calling for remove. Like you got rid of Trump, why don't you get rid of Russia? Russia's still up there, by the way, on Twitter.
Yeah. And that's been such a huge example. You got rid of Trump, you're letting this person here. You got rid of Trump, but you're letting this here.
Yeah. Well,
civilian companies and stuff like that are now projecting power in time of war. Like after Google payments shutting down pay networks in Russia, where people can't take public transit and things like that.
Right, and nobody wants this. Nobody really wants this, but the people in power.
And what's happening because when I look at it and you keep seeing this happening, you think if you were just some normal Russian kid, you're talking about a generational separation. Where it's like, I hate those fuckers. They, we went hungry for 6 months because of those Americans. They're gonna hate us their entire lives.
Just like at least, honestly.
I don't know. I think to a certain degree, there's reason for hope here, guys. I think there's reason for hope because, I think the whole world sees what's been happening a lot more clearly right now. Like, I think we see that the people who are, quote, elites are the only people who give a damn about playing these, psychopathic global power games. And the rest of humanity has so far been beholden to their gatekeeping, such that we think, when we hear about it, that the only opinion out there is theirs.
Yeah.
And that everybody, in their bullshit extrapolations of 8,000 landlines, that they turn into somehow all Americans agree.
Yeah.
Using frequentist statistical methods that if you look into them in detail, they make claims on them that they can't make.
That's a good point.
Like we are a world that is waking up to the fact that most of us actually want to just live together.
Well, can I say, I think the hope is that people now, I think you have I don't know what you'd call it, but it's like a reduction in the age at which people finally wake up and see how things are really working. And the internet has done that. A lot of other things have done that. But it's made it harder for the people who had been, basically, World War I was started just because they wanted it to happen. Yeah. And they wanted to cull the population, essentially. So you think about it, the fact that Sean's kid, that's the first thing that he mentions after he mentions that one name, means they've been watching either the Isaac Cappy stuff, suicided because he was calling out names in Hollywood and entertainment. So topical. See, I'm bringing it back to the topic. And you think about it, the fact that these kids, because that is not in the mainline press. That's not something you can see even on the most extreme forms of regular media. So that's kind of cool. Anyway, that's my hope. Is like the fact that everybody's finally figuring out. I was like, wait a minute, we don't hate. You can't make me hate this other person just because they have a ski at the end of their name, right?
Yeah, that's the other way. The other side of what I was saying earlier is like, it's been so recent relatively that the internet has existed. So now we have direct access to other people on the other side of the world in a way that we didn't before. Mm-hmm. So we have psyops have to evolve, I guess, because you can't just say, oh, these people are like this, because we'll just be like, wait, no, they're not. I talk to 12 of them a day in Telegram. What are you talking about?
Right. And it's just like as soon as this war started, the amount, on everywhere, on regular media, Twitter, on 4chan, the amount, just a flood of things that there's no way they're organic to have developed that quickly. It's like, people posting stuff. It's like, wait, you didn't just, it's just weird. So anyway,
it's actually kind of why
at the level of technology that we have, I think that regular people understand, the game that's being played. Like you said, they're like, hey, hate these people. We're just like, no, that's stupid. Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, all of these, corporations that are coming out and they're crushing Russian people. And like you said, it's going to create such dissent, a whole generation of people that are going to hate, the people that put them through this. But it's not like Apple Pay and Samsung and all of those and PayPal. You can't just make it so you could only buy food. This can only transact in grocery stores.
Yeah.
You're telling me that you can't use this to buy a song is stopping the Russian war machine. You can make it so people can't get cash, or they can't, you can limit certain things, but you could always make it so people could buy food, music.
The whole point is just another fucking excuse to do exactly what they did to the Canadian truckers. That's what this is about. It is about using sanctions on individuals.
It's not even corporate America. It's people. Corporate machine. We're moving towards sci-fi. The weapons we're talking about, the fact that we're talking about, all the power the corporations have. And just like with COVID, everything is being pushed to the limit. How far can we push this past what's legal to where we made a new, not case law, but a new precedent of what we can get away with?
The legal system is based on precedents now, right? Not law, just what's happened already in the past. What people have gotten away with in the past, that's just the precedent now.
And pretty soon we're going to have, corporate armies. We're going to have, where your town is policed by Walmart, your town's policed by Coca-Cola. It's just, we'll help the U.S. Taxpayer, and we'll take a burden off of the government, and we'll get some tax breaks or something like that, and it'll end up with us.
The financial companies doing the financial censorship on people. Those people are already part of our corporate army. Like it is the Mussolini pure version of fascism is happening, and we're watching it.
Who couldn't easily construct the case that the U.S. military is a corporate military?
Right.
Yeah.
Who literally have Under Armour fucking badges, almost as visible as the U.S. flag in most of their configurations.
In other countries, now that's another thing that I have a mindset that's different, and I recognize that, because especially when I look on Twitter and I see these people write things, and to me it's so insane, but I honestly think that guy doesn't have a gun. Not only that, he knows his neighbor doesn't have one, his neighbor's neighbor doesn't have one. There's no one on his whole street that has a 22. To live in that place, to me, is just I can't wrap my head around it. And for them to think I can just walk into a hardware store and buy a gun, or I can walk into Walmart and
can't wrap their head around it.
They can't
fire my 3D printer up.
But it is a different mindset.
This is like when I visit
completely dependent
other half of the family. It's like
on someone else for any kind of when you're completely dependent on anyone, on someone else for any kind of defense for the people that you care about. It was you. Greg posted this thing. It was a UFC fighter.
Yeah.
And he's like, look, man, I don't know what's going on, but if they come to Arkansas, I'm going to dig my heels in and I'm going to kill everybody.
But I'm not going over there.
Don't come to Arkansas.
Yeah.
And he has that mindset, but when the shit hits the fan, Ukraine, they're just giving, here, grandma, here's a gun. Now you need to have one. We're in trouble.
Speaking of
when the government's threatened, but before that, no. And I think that's the difference in the rest of the world.
Oh,
that they don't have that mindset of being able to defend yourself if you need to.
And we talked about the hypocrisy of that last week, right? And the fact that the odd thing and I saw someone point this out, and I was like, I hadn't even thought of it in that context, that it's hypocritical for them to support the release of semi-autos to the locals in Ukraine just because the Russians are so evil. The odd thing was that they also called it out as this is heroic. Yeah, they're all going to fight and all this other stuff. When you're thinking about, okay, you have a military coming in and you're going to give weapons to the thing, by the way, that they
used to call that child conscription.
Right. It's a child conscription thing, like what happened in Berlin at the end of the war, which like, this is evil. These little kids had to fight. Obvious, overwhelming odds. That's horrible, right? Why don't you just surrender? And yet it's heroic here. And what do you do if you're rolling tanks in and all of a sudden you have a whole citizenry?
Right.
That's a scary, bad thing. So
to me, the bottom line is this: if human beings wanted to kill each other with tanks and bombs and fucking drones, you wouldn't have to have wars in order to sell them. But you have to have state-sponsored action if you want those things to exist, because most people don't want to fucking blow up neighborhoods; they want to build them. Yeah. Most people don't want to burn down businesses.
We need to go back to city-states or somehow get to tighter governance where at least I could move 30 minutes away.
That was the idea of the United States. That's what was so revolutionary. And we've lost that. People, I guess because of history not being taught, but the idea of the United States was so radical and so mind-blowing. And now it's not. People think some people think it's even bad because it's not what it used to be. It was about much more localized control. Everybody, it was more of like the EU. It was a bunch of states working together as a power, but the power was only for protecting other people. It wasn't about controlling shit. And it's changed to where I've said this before. There's no difference between the United States and most European countries. There's just not. The only difference is, like I said, a lot of times that we're armed to the teeth, and that we do have a different mindset. And I have seen the mindset. Like Trump said this, and it pissed people off. But I was like, yeah, I'm glad someone said that. We're not refugees. If something happens, we're like, okay. It's time to fight. It's not, and that's the thing. And you can say that's terrible for these old people and kids to fight against tanks, but that's how the mindset is. It's like if they come in, it's time to die. That's it. It's time to fight and die, or it's time to win. It's not really time to run. It's just the way I think that Americans think. We're either going to fix it, and we're going to repel it, or we're going to die trying. It's not the way a lot of people think, but they've grown up not knowing they have the ability to defend themselves at any time.
Right. Well, and I think that's part of that is the sort of the lost enlightenment perspective, right? The idea that we're not Russians and Ukrainians and Americans. We're Homo sapiens, and we all live in this one country called fucking planet Earth together, and we have a lot of different cultures, and those are our countries. We don't need states anymore, and that's my last 2 cents on it. We just need entertainment. We need music. We need music is what we need.
One thing about bringing up, I did notice this, is that there's all these quotes and things being brought up about Russians from like World War II, like the stuff that whatever the General Eisenhower, whoever said, the Russian people are not regular people. They're not like us.
They're
It was
on
all like
unicycles.
kind of they're savages. They think differently. They'll never be like us. And it was blowing my mind that they're bringing this stuff up, and
Well,
they're that they're pushing in this direction.
Right.
You know?
I love my Volga German ancestry, and those folks were Russian. I'm pretty sure they fit in here pretty well. So
Cool. All right, we'll get to questions. Good. That was good. That was crazy stuff going on in the world. We should make bets as to EMP or other nasty bomb usage, and we should also, we should have a contest where people predict the gas price, but we'd have to figure out, what do you think? Is it the top gas price in the U.S.? Is that the best thing to do? And Price is Right rules, and you have to put it on Eternal to win.
I will make a prediction right now, though, that I thought of this morning in the shower.
Yeah.
That what if Putin was counting on the sanctions and getting shut down and canceled and crushed, and the economy tanking and the ruble going to zero, and then he's just going to hop on the Chinese central bank digital currency with Russia, and then they'll be buddies.
All their pay networks already have.
actually, one last thought on this, guys.
So,
What if
goes
our
on to
involvement
who you
here?
want. That's what I'm saying, And
And
that-
just to let everyone know, a gallon of gas in Russia right now is like $1.90.
Yeah.
And they're
So-
complaining about it, but yeah.
Parting shot here. What if all of our efforts in this have a lot more to do with justifying the sort of inflationary and economic consequences of our sort of controlled detonation of the U.S. economy?
You knew war was going to happen because we're so in debt. Everybody knows there's no way to get out of it. War. That's what's going to happen, because it'll erase stuff. You'll be enough people will die. People won't care. It's like, wait, you told me. It's like, doesn't matter anymore. It's like,
that's what
not the dollar, it's something else.
The answer to all these problems is crypto, though, of course. So
yeah, for sure.
Yep.
And that's what I think is going on. Is I think that there was already a concerted effort before this war to blame inflation and price hikes on corporations and rich people and billionaires, not the government who made the policies that led to the catastrophe, but civilians, regular people. You know what I mean? Blame it on them. That didn't work out so well, and then now there's a war. I don't think one led to the other, but it seems to be
some people think too.
Things are going to the shitter, and nobody who is responsible for it wants to be responsible for it.
And who knows how many of these things are interlocked, because that's the same biolab story. A lot of people think too that this war is to distract from what is coming out now about what happened with COVID. The fact, we have to do something to distract. It's a sleight of hand. Anyway, all right.
Last thing I promise I'll say is really what that UFC fighter was saying. He was saying that because he doesn't know what's really true, because he doesn't know what's real, he's not going to go kill people because he doesn't know if he's right. So he's going to stay out of it until he knows what's right or somebody comes to him.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's all he was saying.
It's all
You need to do another
very
show
entertaining.
someday
It's a good
during the
segue
weekend.
into-
So about the question,
I will tell you, you can probably get better wisdom from people like, and this is odd, but like an MMA fighter or Mike Tyson than you can from a talking head on CNN. That's enough said there. So first question, Josh O. Musicians question. Will blockchain help musicians see more reward rather than the fractions they get from streaming services? Thanks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I say I'm going to add something to this that is, I often am pessimistic about a lot of things. Why? Because I'm old enough that I thought I was a musician, right? Anybody who doesn't know, it was a regional band, death metal. I was also I wrote classical music. I did a lot of cool stuff, right? Classical guitar music. I thought the internet by itself was going to be the thing that changed the world, because I know of bands that got signed that essentially got screwed. They become so jaded they never want to play music again. I retired from music for that reason. I was just so jaded with local promoters cheating everybody they could, with the labels that would screw around people that I know, essentially steal money from them. It's like, okay, we're going to sign you up. We're going to make millions off of this, And that part that was yours, that's promo. You had to pay for it. It's in the contract. You had to pay for the promo. You had to pay. And well, I didn't get to choose it. Doesn't matter. The contract says I get to choose how to spend that money that was supposed to go to you for promo. Crap like that would happen over and over again. And essentially what was needed, and there were a select few that did this, but most of them caved into or were set up to do this by the bigger guys. Like there were a slew when the indie music scene came around that, you know, everybody realized how evil the big labels were. So all these small labels would pop up that they were all owned by the big labels. They were either purchased after they were created independently, or they were created fully, purposely to say, well, this is indie music. But it's really the big guys. And with the internet, all that was needed was controversy or something to get published and something to buy, right? And when we were doing it, we had to struggle with the fact that internet there was not enough bandwidth, and you could not, like the MP3, any of the good compressions that we know of today weren't there yet. Everything was a WAV file, an AIFF file. I'm trying to think what the other formats were. And you could put snippets up on the internet that people could actually listen to, but you couldn't put the whole thing, and it definitely wouldn't be full quality. And so back then we struggled. How do we get this out there, right? We would have people, this would have been after the fall, you know, in the 90s, after the fall of the Iron Curtain, that we would have people writing. In fact, we had this kid who wrote this letter to us, and I've never in my life before or since seen such penmanship. It was every single letter was as if it was on a big cheap notebook by some kid who was OCD. I mean, it was perfection, the whole letter. And the outside had these really strange, it was the weirdest thing I'd ever seen, where to make it so he could write perfectly. And he asked for a cassette tape. And we had multiple people doing this. We're like, hey, can you guys send me a cassette tape? We're there's a big metal scene here in St. Petersburg, and I want to trade it with some of my friends, and we want to copy it. And you know, we had on our albums back then that copy this. You know, we want it to spread. You know, it was like, somebody bought this, but please copy it, right? And it was
the Trent Reznor philosophy.
Yeah, it was a really cool thing, because that stuff. I mean, I would tell you, the 4 band members put in $12 each. And we basically made an album. This is before you could do anything with CDs to any level. It was all cassettes. And we had our one of the guys in the band dupe them for us, right? And that $48 turned into thousands and thousands of cassettes, because every time we sold one, we'd come back in and buy more raw, and we would just reproduce. And the whole point was to get the thing out, and it worked, because we got attention in the the former Iron Curtain states, and we got attention in Asia, more even than we had locally, and it was really cool. But when the internet came, and you know, we were too early for it, but it was just this thing that you don't need labels anymore. Why do you need a distribution label if you have MP3s? Literally, what do you get? It's crazy, and it didn't happen. So I'm thinking, okay, so blockchain's here, awesome. If anybody has any experience other than me, I want to hear about it. But when you talk to labels, they don't want what you're selling. The people that want it are the bands. We've talked to some pretty big bands, but it's still maybe a little, and you know, you think about it, it's a band, and they're well-established band that everybody knows, but they still didn't do anything because they didn't understand it enough. But they know, and they are super interested in the fact that, hey, if I'm tracking this, and if I can get people to use this tracking system, they can't cheat me anymore, because that's what they do every time. They're losing $250,000 every year because the labels who own whatever they own and or control whatever they control are just fudging the accounting numbers on how many times that song has been played. So the agreement says, oh, you only get this much, and they have to literally negotiate. There's not like some ledger that they can go to and prove this is exactly what I see. And the fact that it doesn't exist is because the people that would be required to agree to use it don't want it. They're making millions and millions by not having it.
The obfuscation serves their ends, right?
So I'm going to tell you, there's a lot more at play than just, oh, this is a cool tech and it's so freaking obvious. you have to always think about the guys that don't want it.
Right.
With the government, it's the same thing, by the way. It's the same argument. Yes, voting should be freaking well on blockchain so we can prove that you're not cheating us. Guess who doesn't want that?
Right.
The politicians that are cheating.
Anybody who wants to cheat.
That's what's interesting about like blockchain tech is illuminating in that way, because if you think about like what it fixes is it makes it harder to cheat, it makes fraud more difficult, it makes things more transparent. Those are really the traits of like the nature of the technology.
Right.
And so anyone who's violently against that, I have to think has something that they is not going to work in that system for them as well. You know, that kind of.
Well, it's also got a really neat aspect of imposed scarcity for musicians that, you know, if there is one value add left to having establishment backing for your music, it is to make sure that people aren't taking your music and using it and either claiming credit for creating it or claiming some kind of benefit for performing it in public, and without these so-called institutions backing you, you have no way to know that no way to know that you're being properly compensated for its use, and that's something that the blockchains do for you without having, like, I mean, the streaming platform question, right?
Yeah.
Who needs, for example, a company called Spotify if you have a decentralized marketplace for music streamers and music creators?
Yep.
You don't need a middleman. They don't take a cut. That goes to the artist.
That's what's possible. You still have Smartify, Spotify, but they do the smart thing and evolve with technology and convert their entire business model into a freaking smart contract.
Right. And it should be community governed, right? The more people, the more times you play a track, the more votes you should have. Or the more times you publish a track,
the tracks that no one listens to either go away, or somebody has to say, no, I want that there. It costs a little more, but I'm the only one who wants it. It's an interesting thing because you could both pay them and pay whatever fees for, if it's on whatever decentralized storage streaming network it would be on.
The other thing that's really neat about this is it makes derivative works accessible, or it makes licenses accessible, right? Because right now, if you want to get a license, if we wanted to go and get like a Billie Eilish tune or something, so we could play it at the start of World Blockchain Roundtable, we could hypothetically get it if the people who will license it will fucking talk to you, but they gatekeep.
Yeah. It's profitable to make it easier for people to give you money. There's things that I would do if it was easier. There's things that I've done wrong because it was easier to do it the wrong way.
Yeah. I mean, and now, like, I was literally on, this is one of my favorite things about this. Like, has anybody been on Audius and searched for a song called Punk Holder? And guess I'm not. That is a remix of an audio recording of a Twitter space. And I, from the guy who created it, I was able to purchase a derivative works license using Mintable.
That's awesome.
He went on and he created a derivative works NFT, which I purchased. And now he has proof on record that I bought a license to make derivative works, unexclusive, so other people can go buy it too. That sort of thing didn't happen before. People can make these songs and put them up, and they could be really clever. Like Punk Holder was awesome. It was like literally this dude who owned a CryptoPunk was getting a little bit too high and mighty about his need to cut the speaking line, and he said, "Hang on, I'm a punk holder. You got to listen to me." And that turned into this remix of this song that it's brilliant. It's funny as fuck to listen to. And I was like, I want that for.
Do you know who I am?
Yeah,
exactly.
I haven't heard that. I want to hear that now.
That's a cool side of it. We really do need to do another show sometime during the week and just talk about, like, crazy stuff, because I've been thinking about, especially this past week,
I have an idea for one.
Music because a new video game came out called Elden Ring. Everyone's crazy about it. Everyone's been playing it here like nonstop for days. But the video game industry makes more money than the movie industry and the music industry combined now, which is mind blowing. But if you take a step back, especially us, I think the four of us especially, we get this. I don't even want to say kids. I think people in their 30s even and below don't get this. The power and magic, and that's a real word, magic, that music used to have to be able to move people emotionally, to just pull feelings out of you, to bring you back to certain times in your life. It's not there anymore. Not just because music's bad, because music is terrible now. But I think the fact that
near tears by music
imagery was a big
regularly.
part of this.
Still,
is that people no longer listen to albums. Songs that you wouldn't listen to.
Yeah.
There's things that people don't know, songs that exist because they were on an album. They only know the hits. And literally now people only know hits. You can just ask, your speaker to play them. You can make your specific playlist. You can stream whatever you want. There's no one telling you or kind of forcing you to listen to that B-side, to listen to the rest of the songs on the tape.
I think there's some of that.
Exposed.
Sean, I agree with that to a certain degree, but I also think there are a lot of underground scenes that haven't been connected to the world, right? Like my barber is literally in a punk band.
Yes, but I'm talking about on like the big picture scale.
Right.
Like they're still there.
Yeah.
There's us. We're here. We're but I think the majority of people, they're just listening to those hits. They're not into music.
You can always talk about that at any point in time.
When my kids are doing stuff, it's Netflix in the background. Nobody listens to music in the background.
Right. And I think we can probably see that that start to change if we can have distribution platforms that aren't already sort of pre-gamed for the ones being promoted by institutional sources.
Can we go to the next question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure.
Next question, because there's something that is like, it's a good segue into this. It's about JP12X. Question: can you think of ways to make music more easily or better using blockchain? And I think this is one of them. That one of the things you can do, particularly with licensing, is and it's maybe a certain type of music, but the fact that there is a massive treasure trove of historical and unknown, they call them stems, but they're basically tracks that were recorded, never released, or things that isn't maybe a full song. It's a take of someone singing something or someone doing playing a guitar that wasn't used.
Yeah,
and
or an isolated
fact
song,
Yeah, I think it's $1 billion, and we've actually approached some labels with it. We've got some level of interest, but it's almost like it's just too early. We don't understand it enough, or there might be some level of fear that this could upset some other revenue stream. I don't know, but the fact that you imagine if I was a musician and I could come in and I could extenuate my track with either historical pieces or with something that they don't even make that reverb unit anymore, or I can't get access to it. So to use this would be an amazing thing. And that I could license it, knowing that I am not stealing this content from that original artist or the label that now owns it. And then I could then put it out, and it would be simple. And then YouTube could even know. I was like, wait a minute, we detected this. I was like, oh, we see you have the license attached to the video. Imagine if you could do that, how easy it would be for people to produce. And that's just one thing. There are tons of others, but the licensing is a big part of it. And, the fact that people have gotten stuff stolen before, like, what was it? Mellencamp actually in an interview said that there was one song that Bowie did that was his song, and it was literally stolen before he was famous, right? Shit like that has happened through all time. And, it's just like inventing something. You have to be careful who you tell it to, but at the same time, if you don't tell it to anyone, it'll never get anywhere.
Right. Yeah, to a certain degree, the best ideas still have to be shoved down everybody's throats to be accepted. Right.
Yeah.
Like,
I would love to see, so making things easier for artists and making music easier with blockchain and stuff. There's also like the previous question talked about monetization, almost like can artists get more money now that there's blockchain? And it isn't just coming from efficiencies and cutting out fraud and middlemen and stuff like that. It's also the concept of like the process of like, unless you hire a team to come in and make a film and you release a DVD set album, that the making of the album or something, there's not a lot of monetizing process of creating something in the first place, monetizing the interactions with your fan club, all of these things that people do. I always think that like bands should have a layer as a fan club in DIN, right? So on DIN we're separated into different layers, and then you can own that layer, and then your community can also own and vote on stuff, and then you have a really easy way to not just interact, and it doesn't have to be a governance thing. It can just be a feedback mechanism where based on behavior in the platform that like, oh, the people that are giving me feedback are the ones I want to listen to, because they're the ones, even though I don't know their names, I can prove, like I know that they're the ones that have supported us the most, right? So it's not just somebody being loud and somebody being like, oh, this other band's better, why don't you play like them? It's somebody who's like, oh, they're into us and they want to try it. So
like
that whole process of like just keeping a community together to promote a show, like the energy and money put into promoting it itself can be an experience that people own part of and have, benefits from on top of what they're already doing, I guess.
Right. And then you take that idea and you extrapolate it into sort of DAOs too, like with the community building aspect of it. What if, for instance, someone were to start a DAO called the Kansas City Punk Scene DAO, and it was all about getting shows going and organizing them and making sure that we had artists and we could get regional artists and all those things. Like you get a contact from somebody in Ukraine saying, send us a tape. That's nothing compared to the idea of we're going to organize a DAO funded effort to do international outreach with our scene's music. And that starts to get powerful really fast.
And by the way, I think that I didn't mention it earlier because we were running on time, but that issue with the powers that be not wanting to implement something that is obviously the right thing to implement, that blockchain can help their industry because they have other revenue or fears or something. I think the DAO is the key to upsetting that, because that's what's going to say, well, guess what? Next question here. We don't need HBO to produce Game of Thrones. If George R.R. Martin wants to do this, he could put up a DAO and essentially get all the right people involved and get the funding. That becomes way better.
Well, I mean, and you can take that even further, right? You could say, you know what? I want this song to be accessible to everybody because it's this classic and the artist is no longer around. And all that's happening right now is it's being hoarded by whoever holds the license. Let's get a DAO together and liberate these content licenses.
That's definitely something that happens. I don't know. I see it happening in the hip hop scene a lot, where people are trying to get their old work back and stuff like that. There was a fight, not a fight, but there was a difference of opinion between who owned the Chronic. Now that Snoop Dogg has bought Death Row Records back, is it Dr. Dre that owns the Chronic because it's his album? Is it Snoop Dogg's album now because he bought?
I didn't realize he did that.
Michael Jackson with the Beatles, all that stuff. And I mean, when we'll know that we've made it when a DAO comes together to this is kind of crazy, but to essentially outbid Disney for the ownership of senators to get the copyright laws.
Right. Mickey Mouse will be public domain. Mickey Mouse will be public domain, and we'll know we've won.
Yeah, that's how you'll know.
We really haven't talked about is just like Dave kind of mentioned, is just the efficiency of blockchain. If you're looking at, every time MP3 gets sold, the artist is supposed to get 1.5 cents. They literally could get that instantaneously with crypto. If it's every time their song sells, they get.
That's true. Even if you couldn't get paid more, you could get paid faster for sure.
Yeah, everything is way faster.
Well,
it's all
more important than getting paid more or getting paid faster is having the actual transparency to know that you're not cheating me as an artist. That's what's probably most important, because then the deals can be made. It's like, wait a minute, you're paying.
And also, like you were saying, Joe, you have the ability to fudge numbers when you're talking about fiat and fractions of a penny. Where you don't have that ability when you can actually pay fractions of a penny.
Also, the smart contract does not need a cut.
They have all the funding to do all the tricks in the book on the accounting side, so they can have separate books. It's like, no, these are the books, right? And they're not really the books. Anyway, so next question. And by the way, guess what? None of that could beat on Ethereum. It just can't scale to that. So guess what? Guess what? This is the anyway. Jacob Wayne, topic: using blockchain tech to integrate NFT ownership of media and streaming services. Imagine being an early investor, new Game of Thrones prequels, and earning a passive income as it streams on HBO.
Yeah,
exactly, because it would be something. Here's the other thing, that it's not just, oh, we have all this assembled and now you can buy a part of it, which you're going to have all type of regulators saying, wait a minute, you can't let a normal person who isn't a millionaire buy that. That's not fair.
right. All our millionaire friends who pay our fucking lobbying fees, they say that's unacceptable. They want to be the only ones who can.
And I don't know, it's not settled law yet. Yeah, well, and that if we say, look, we're going to put this together, it's, in my opinion, a market signal even as to when it should be produced. If there are enough people saying, holy crap, yes, I want to see that, the funding is there, right? And it's an amazing thing, because I even think that the corporates would be very smart to think about adopting the strategy for project create, even internally, even if it's not an external thing, is that all of the employees who know the things, or if it's the fan base, to say, should we make this or should we make this, right? And that's what we're doing on Den. I want
to see videographers and writers put a little bit, like, raise enough capital amongst themselves and actors to make a teaser trailer, a really freaking good teaser trailer, right? And the teaser trailer comes out to like announce the idea, whether it's a music album or a film or whatever. And it's just like, here's the concept, right? Here's the, what it'll take to cost. Here's where to send your money. Who filmed now? You know what I mean? Be a part of it.
Right. And also, like, I don't know if you guys remember Iron Sky.
Once it can just send money to it. Oh, I'll pitch in this much, and then it's funded, and now we can make it. Cool.
Do you guys remember Iron Sky?
It doesn't get funded in a certain amount of time, and then the contract can just automatically kick back money and refund if it doesn't reach its funding goal. That could be like a whole new way to start it.
They could go further than that. Like Iron Sky is my favorite example of this. I don't know if you guys remember this, but like, you could go on a forum and look at the list of sound effects they still needed, and you could be like, oh, they need 3 laser shot sounds. So I'm going to make those and I'm going to submit them, and then I'm going to get a film credit for producing those 3 sound effects. Now you could actually with crypto and DAOs and these smart contract structures, not only list that, but say, come contribute this, and if the DAO votes that your sound effect is the one we use, then you get paid.
Yeah. I was waiting for an excuse to talk about an idea that I had for a marketplace. I don't know, Joe, do you want me to talk about it publicly or save it for our own IP and then internally? Should
I don't know. I mean, whatever.
You have to say it now. No
one will do it anyway. That's always the thing. It's like if you ever looked at
somebody will, yeah.
Bruno Leschi. If you want to look up Bruno Leschi, super secretive architect. He made the dome in Florence, right? Brilliant. He had cranes that they didn't know existed at the time, but he was scared someone was going to steal the tech, right? So he and therefore he was not as his effect on history wasn't as pronounced as it could have been.
Right.
So yeah, go ahead and share it.
No, that's fine. You were talking about sound effects for films or whatever, and I hadn't thought of that actually. I was thinking about in the DJ scene, producer scene, electronic music, things like that. Like if there was, and there are obviously marketplaces and like packs you can buy of this many sound effects. Oh, this is different versions of drum sounds, and you can the guitar and horns, whatever, to make music. But if each of those obviously was an NFT, and each of those obviously was owned by who did record it in their home studio or whatever, and then an artist could, incorporate those into their music, go shop kind of a la carte. Doesn't matter who made it. Everybody just publishes on there. It's like the open sea of, hip hop beats and music sound effects. And then when you incorporate that and you produce a track, the track itself is an NFT that also embeds not only like what you used inside of it, but also maybe even how much of it you use, or if it's modified or not, just metadata like that in the song itself NFT. And then if someone buys rights to stream it, that's an NFT. And then your streaming platform just knows what you own, and maybe it's transportable between platforms at this point. Because oh, you bought this on a different platform, but you can use it now on iTunes. You can just put in your NFT in iTunes, claim your wallet or something, and then all of a sudden you have access to the music you've paid for in the past.
Right.
Like you don't have to buy it 12 freaking times on
Right.
that kind of thing. You just own
Well,
it, and that could all be layered into itself to where it's all self-referencing and it's all self-solving, and even bake in the rewards to split out from a stream. It could be a 1 cent charge to stream, and that could be sent out split among the person who put the track together, among all the people who made the different sound effects, whoever they are, among anybody who is part owner of the artist's DAO who help him advertise. Like anything can just be done automatically at that point.
Right.
So
Now let's take this a step further.
A marketplace kind of.
Let's take this a step further, Dave. What if the live performance ticket itself was the first gateway IP you got into this? To where, like, if you go to the live show, for example, you walk away with your NFT ticket, you take it home and you put in the contract address and your NFT number. It verifies it's in your wallet, and boom, all of a sudden you get access to the bootleg.
Yes,
exactly.
Right. Like
you already have a ticket stub subculture. Like there's collecting ticket stubs of shows you into and things like that. You could not only facilitate trading those, say it's a digital stub, but let's say the band decides that, hey, anybody who comes to this show gets include this. You automatically get access to this album. Let's say it's a debut album tour, so everybody who comes out to the tour gets a copy of the album, or at least rights to stream it. And then
maybe even rights to use it in derivative works if you're at the very, very first show.
And if you want to sell that ticket stub to somebody who wants to collect the whole tour, right? I want every stub from every place this band played this year on this tour. You could, and also you could transfer the rights to stream with the stub too. Right.
And most people won't claim them, and so there's even more scarcity. And you could directly tie. We have an entire design for a platform that deals with events and music events or corporate events, right? But essentially, it's to use blockchain to flip the economics on it, because setting up event is an extremely high risk situation, because it costs a lot to procure a venue. You have to sign contracts. You don't know if people are going to show. There could be a weather event. There could be something that would bankrupt you for some of these things, right? So it's really hard to do that. And so we have an entire thing where we flip it so that there's a lot of uncertainty in the early days. You don't know exactly when. It's going to be in your town, but you're going to buy a ticket. Now, it might be something that it's even the case where if we don't get enough people buying tickets, then the show won't happen. So you buy in early. It's really cheap, knowing that they're like old ICO days, that this NFT that is a ticket is going to go up in price over time as more people buy them. And therefore, if you can't go because you realize, oh crap, that's the week of my somebody's some birthday thing, so I'm going to be out of town, I can't go. But guess what? That ticket I bought for $20 is now going to be $250, because the people who want to go will pay the $250 for it. So there's no risk on my part. There's no risk on their part, because they're assembling. Okay, now we need this venue, so we need some contract to say we're going to commit, but we might need to move it, and so we need a little bit of opening in the contract. And so now the people who are promoting it, and the same thing works with if it's a convention, but you could do it in music too, where if you have sponsors that they, in the early days, it's much cheaper to have that sponsorship, to have my logo up there, because you only have 250 people who have bought tickets. So it's much cheaper. When you have 5,000 people, that's more expensive. And I happen to have bought this spot. I have a slot over here that's now worth a lot more. So there's no risk. So I'm more likely to say, hell yes, I'll put my sponsorship for $250.
Right. Or maybe every time you sponsor something, the way that it works is you just sweep the floor of the tickets for the show. And they go up in price.
And the other part of it is the transparency and the fairness that you could get, which in my opinion would drive cult status for the bands that do this. Is, look, if I go to every concert and I can prove it, if I buy every album and I can prove it, if I share this info with others to increase the exposure of this music that I love so much, I'm going to get backstage. I'm going to get exclusive concert before or after the show because I'm the one there, and they have an easy way to transparently reward the real fans. And it's not just because I'm a local celebrity. I don't even really give a crap about these guys, but I got these tickets. That's what it is right now, and it doesn't drive. It does not drive the loyalty that it could, and that's a huge deal. And all it's inexpensive to build it. It's really pretty obvious up front, but we haven't gotten it yet.
Well,
It'll happen.
I think a lot of
the
things that we've
beginning
been
too. Like,
talking
there's so
about
much you can gamify about
have
it,
already
too,
been
right?
proven that they work with like Kickstarter.
Mhm.
Kickstarter's done so many of these things, but I think the thing, just like everything else with blockchain, it just kind of makes things better. It makes it harder to cheat, and it would do that. All the negative stuff, like I back things with Kickstarter that were like super amazing, and this is great, and I'm like, here's my money, and then for like 2 years, they're like, we're busy.
I was. What was it?
And this would fix a lot of that. It would help the consumer given their money, because people that say that they make promises would have to abide by those if they're smart contracts, and they could lose their funding.
Or at the very least, they would have to be honest about the fact that that if you're putting money into this, you may be throwing it away because we're not sure if we can succeed.
Yeah. And I've backed cool stuff. Like, one thing I'm still waiting for, They Live, the game. I mean, the movie. These people made a game of it, but you have the sunglasses that really work, and like you can. It's amazing looking game, but it's been like a year, and I'm still waiting for my damn game. And they've been all right with updates, like, hey, this stuff costs more than we thought, and this this was harder to produce and blah. But still, there've been other things. Like, one of them was called an Akita. It was you guys will love the shit out of this. It's some kind of thing that protects your network, and it took years for them to get me. I mean, I had to threaten them. I was finding the dudes who were behind on LinkedIn, like, man, because they were in crypto, because they were all about security and I was like, look, I'm going to make videos about you, you asshole. Where's my damn Akita? You've already shipped out the first bunch of my game. You guys like hundreds of bucks. So I think that it would help so much on that end of it. But it's like everything else with blockchain. With the question is that it really just improves on things that already work.
It was funny. I was at this. I think it was Techstars Seattle in 2017. This was when we were just rolling out Dragonchain stuff, right? And somebody there asked, well, how could you really fix the big issues with Kickstarter, right? Where people were getting traditional world rug pulled, essentially. That is like, you put this money in and, it didn't work, right?
Well, that was always the deal, though, right?
Yeah. But with crypto, the thing is, if you have a DAO, right? And I mentioned this, like, look, you could, in a decentralized way, let the people who put money in have the control both of the funding side, and when they realize, wait a minute, funds are running down, this is not going to work, they could all vote to exit and basically, pull back what remains.
Or like, this person's mismanaging it. They could get this done if they had the right people.
Yep.
The person who created this project is out.
Exactly. Yep.
And
it's just you then put that. Then it's just more transparent. It's like, yes, it was a non-ideal outcome, but at least we didn't get completely ripped off.
Right. And then you also get to avoid the biggest problem with Kickstarter, which is, frankly, the regulatory interjection into it that basically said certain types of projects are completely illegal on here because you need to be a qualified investor. Yep. If you want to actually, if you want to actually be able to start this kind of idea, you either need only qualified investors, or the Kickstarter campaign needs to come with SEC disclosures and filings. P.S. Enjoy hiring a lawyer because you can't crowdfund that part first. No, we don't want that world. We want a world where we can always throw our money into a pool and like paint the moon green if we feel like it.
Yeah, and why do you think that is? It's and it's the same thing. You have this GoFundMe cancellation. They had similar things with Kickstarter. You couldn't put up certain projects because of
I think it's because the powerful realize that is the most amazing tool in their arsenal, right?
It's
the
very
idea of taking all of our funds and pooling them to a collective purpose is the essence of elite power and has been for centuries.
Yeah.
They will gatekeep that fiercely. And if we can take it from them, then we can start doing things that nobody's ever done before, that they do not want us to do. You know, you want to change the way the government funds military. Holy shit, you need a fucking army of K Street lobbyists, and the only way you do that is by pooling funds.
Yeah.
Or let's say you want to actually pay Elon Musk to put what the fuck you want in orbit instead of another spy satellite. You're going to need a team of people to put that shit together. And like one of the ideas that I had Kickstarter was to literally test the M drive by hooking a couple of them to the back of a Back to the Future modified DeLorean and having it inserting it into a lunar orbit so that it would transit and we could see it on telescopes. Like anybody in their backyard could watch the DeLorean while we hit the button to turn on the M drive, and if it changed course, M drive works, right? Huge citizen science project. And it would be ridiculous because we'd be putting a DeLorean into orbit around the moon, which would be extra fun. That's not something they will fund.
You know, that's interesting that you talk about the citizen scientist thing. I haven't talked to this guy in years, but I used to hang out with him all the time at the hackerspace in Norfolk, Virginia, when I was in the Navy, when I was active duty. And I was either like at work on the ship, at a home drinking, or at the hackerspace trying to figure out some shit. That was my whole life. And you know, Navy sailors. And Jameson Dungan is his name, and he has a lab, a citizen scientist lab with like CRISPR set up and everything. And that's interesting because he could use, and he's one of the first people that I ever talked to about Bitcoin. He was one of the first people to be like, oh shit, this is going to be something, you know? So I'm sure he knows plenty of it. But they could do, the citizen scientist community could do fundraising this way for projects.
One more question.
Also, after this, you need to remind me. I need to tell you all something about the moon landing conspiracy thing. I found some cool stuff out. I want to tell you.
Sure. I did too. I was just reading the Wikipedia for Iron Sky. I didn't know what it was, but now I got to go watch both that and Star Wreck: The Perkening.
Yes, I own both of them in UHD.
Cool. Okay, let's see here. I think this is it. Yes, the future is here. Which entertainment industry has the most resistance towards keeping blockchain and crypto out of their industry to protect their current money machine? I will tell you, I think that audio, music has probably been a little more exposed to it because it's easier than video, especially with scalability of blockchains. But I'm not as much in the Hollywood world to know. I know music industry stuff has been
broadcast TV
out there. Broadcast TV is a big one, right?
That's interesting.
I don't want people collectively buying airwaves. They will not fucking allow that.
Now I will say broadcast. You talk about broadcast TV or cable. They lost the game before crypto even had anything to do with it. I would say, you know, the whole, and that was just an organic, natural thing. So
yeah, that was just the internet.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, but how fast could it come back? Do you think if all of a sudden it wasn't NBC and ABC on channels 3 and 4 broadcast, but whatever the fuck we wanted to put on that day?
Yeah, and this depends on this is like politicians, this is companies, that CEOs, CTOs. Depends on who's advising them. Depends on what their intentions are. Sometimes, right? Because the cable companies could absolutely leapfrog and be like, "Oh, Netflix did it to us. We're going to do it to them. We're going to make Peacock Network. Everybody has their own app." And
Greg, imagine how huge cable access TV shows would have been if the internet was around when that was there.
Right.
I mean, you're talking about.
Well, I do think.
Well, what if you could click buy broadcast mode for this stream? What if it wasn't just on YouTube, but it was going out over frequency and whatever?
Yeah, and I do want to differentiate the technology. The fact that you, in my opinion, you wouldn't do a radio frequency broadcast because you'd only be able to meet it. It's like it's much more cost effective to stream it on the internet, but it would be the same thing. So I get what you're meaning. And you could say we have that. It's just that it's so tightly controlled by YouTube and whoever else owns it. And I wanted to correct Dave. I think the one you said advise, whoever advises them. And I think it's probably more of an order. I think the relationship is different. I think they are told what to do. It's like, if you want to keep getting this money that I'm paying you for your election or for your coffers.
Especially with politicians and lawmakers and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. But I even think of regulators.
Conversation.
I would make the regulators themselves across the board. I tell you, I guarantee there's a ton of back channel money that goes to them, and or even the people who aren't regulators but just run systems inside of all the federal agencies.
Right.
It's not
Especially
typically money under the table.
Stuff.
It's typically, hey, when you retire, you have this cush job for the rest of your life with us, with a good retirement package and everything else. And all you have to do is make sure that you push to have our servers, the ones that you buy. That's the crap that goes on all the time. So I guarantee the regulators have similar deals.
Shit, military, where literally people were basing their decisions sometimes on whether or not it'll schmooze them up to Lockheed or to Northrop Grumman or something, so that they can get cushy job there afterward. Anyway, but
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
I didn't mean to not rudely correct you. I just it
was which industry, and I was just trying to think about. I don't know enough about Hollywood's film industry and stuff, but I see people, actors and stuff, getting into NFTs a lot, and I see artists doing that a lot too. But it's like the independent artists on the music side, or the more independent artists. And there's more than one music industry too. Something that music festivals taught me was there's this entire, and there's more than just music festivals. There's subcultures and there's branches of stuff. And the music festival scene is interesting because that music scene, that part of it, I think because of how everyone comes together and mixes, different personalities from different states and backgrounds all come together to mix all the time at these festivals. Word gets around about, all this new shit that's happening. And at those festivals, it's very common to see the artist that you just paid $1,000 just to be up on stage. They're camping that weekend too. So now they're at the campsite hanging out, playing with you. So that part of the music industry, I see being very open to it. But the traditional radio one, the CDs, the MP3s squashed them and they got pissed off. The Metallica business model, all that stuff. I think that's my answer. I think that's the one that's the most resistant to it. They've got to lose maybe, and I think that
I think it's I think video game industry is lost, is done. They're no. I think you hit the nail on the head with the music industry. It's a lot more fractured than it used to be. There's a lot more kind of subsections of it. So I don't think the control is there. I think Hollywood, and it's also intertwined with the banking system. There's such a limited of powerful, when you get to the top, powerful people with the money, that they have an iron grasp. But like Greg always brings up, if you take that away with funding a project with a DAO, and even there's a company that what was it? Jay and Silent Bob started, and they're a big part of it. It's a bunch of people kind of coming together and funding projects, and then they also share in profits for it. It's like Magnet or Magna or something.
Yeah.
But I think if you, I don't think Hollywood will allow that. They're going to fight tooth and nail to keep what they always have with
distribution networks are going to be hard to access. You won't get on the local radio station or in the local movie theater.
The crazy thing is they've killed half the stuff that would actually be required to hold that. It's when was the last time any of you went to a movie theater? Right, I kind of want to go, but at the same time, it's
I will
recently, and it was really fun.
We went for. I wanted to go for James Bond. There's certain movies I want to see in the theater. Dune. For Dune.
I bought one of those.
But in Hollywood, they've always done that. Like in the 50s, they had ironclad contracts where somebody would starve. They're like, you can't make movies, even though these other studios want to pay you hundreds, thousands, millions of dollars to make them. Yeah. We're going to not make movies and make you just sit here under this contract to kill your career because you wanted to go to work for another studio.
That's why I do like
they've always been evil. Always been evil.
The Howard Hughes story is always awesome to me. It's just here's this independent guy that nobody wanted to be there yet. He's like, I'm going to go make movies.
Right. Well, and then there's like another really great example of this, I think, is what is I can't think of this off the top of my. Oh yeah, the Dune series was never really going to get made, like it ended up getting made, right?
Yeah.
There are so many other sci-fi series out there that have a film option that exists that deserves to get made. Like, who the hell's making Hyperion Cantos? No, they're sitting on the fucking license. That's the sort of thing that human beings can band together with crypto and purchase and make happen. They can liberate these film options that were mostly designed to hoard IP that we might use someday. Like, I desperately want to start Chrono Trigger DAO because that game needs to get remade. And fucking Square got bought by Squaresoft got bought out, right? And all we get are new Final Fantasies instead. And they don't want Chrono Trigger because they don't want that to compete. Like, I want Chrono Trigger liberated so that game makers make the sequel that it
on that. And as a diehard lifetime Final Fantasy fan, it was a liberating experience for me, and I'll always love the series. Chrono Trigger was better.
Yeah, Chrono Trigger is my favorite game.
I don't know if you guys know the story about Blazing Saddles, but the studio owned the rights, and Mel Gibson wanted it back, and he had it, but he put it in their contract that he could have it back if they weren't using it.
Mm-hmm.
So the studio made a television show for 2 years, paid all the actors, filmed it, big actors. I think Louis Gossett Jr. was the sheriff. And he told them this will never air. And for 2 years, they went into work every day. They filmed that for 2 years just so Gibson couldn't have the rights. Studio did all that, spent all that money just to keep him from getting it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Firefly. Nathan Fillion was going to bring that back, but they shut him the fuck down.
Yeah.
You know? Wow.
Dude, Browncoat's DAO would be an amazing thing.
Oh, I'd throw in on that.
That has
Fillion and Tiddick would do that. They would be on board.
So maybe we should start talking about whether we want to do this. Maybe that can be the second show. Maybe the second show format could be it's private unless you do certain things, and then you can come and participate. I don't know.
Dude, that would be second channel. We could make a channel called Second Channel, and just shows like that. We could bring back shows for second
excuses to do things. I want to do a show with they're all of you, but I've been wanting to do I do a coffee with Den one, but I want to do like a not Den like beer with Dave, like whatever, like just talk about stuff, whatever, because I love the topics, but it's sometimes I feel like, wow, what we just got onto, we could spend a freaking hour talking about.
Yeah.
And it's worth talking about. It's not just that we could banter about it for an hour, but it's like, that is an interesting thing. And by the end of it, maybe we're like emailing Nathan Fillion, being like, hey, check out this episode. We just got done talking about you. You want to do this? That kind of thing.
That would be the shit. That would be the shit. And we could also make it so that the whole episode, we had to take a shot on a timer. So it could be sort of like drunk history.
Right, it should have to be some. I was just thinking about some mind-altering
teaser trailer for Uncharted. Remember, he made the whole like teaser trailer like this would be a movie for Uncharted, and they didn't even use him in the movie Uncharted. What the hell, man? They used Marky Mark. I like Marky Mark, but I mean, come on, man. Why didn't you use Fillion? That's just ridiculous.
Yeah. Oh, JP12 said Mel Brooks, not Mel Gibson. That is in fact correct.
Did I say Mel Gibson? No, I didn't. I didn't watch that. I didn't.
You did. You did say Mel Gibson.
I was like, wait a minute.
No way.
I took my kids to once because they have the author of what is it, World War Z, was in town, and so we're like, oh, hey, you want to go see this, right? You know, I didn't know anything about who it was, didn't know anything else, and he's asking these questions about his dad. I'm like, wait a minute. So I'm like looking, it's like, holy shit, it's not Mel Gibson's dad, but it's Mel Brooks. Sorry, Mel Brooks was his dad, and I didn't know that. Right?
For World War Z?
Yeah, the author. What is it? Is it Zach or it's something?
Oh
like
yeah,
Brooks.
You're right. No, you're absolutely
it's Mel
right.
Brooks' son.
I didn't know
who wrote
that.
World War Z, and he was up there talking about they didn't follow the zombies run. You know, they shouldn't be able to run whatever else.
Anybody who's read it was a little dismayed by how
we got to meet him. It was pretty cool. It's like it was.
I have an entire wall in my living room. There's all Mel Brooks. So I did not say Mel Gibson. There's not a thing, dude. No way.
Man. All right. Let's close out. Dave, Dave, what is going on this week?
Well, I was just trying to find something for this. I always shout out myself. I'm still going to do that, but I wanted to shout out my friends too. I like to support my friends' work. Some of them are on DIN, some of them are not. But if you're at South by Southwest this week, Sean, you going over there? That's a Texas thing, right? Isn't that in Texas?
Austin,
like
right?
40 minutes away. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you do, a friend of mine just landed yesterday, and he'll be there with Interplay on the new. I think he's with Interplay or himself, Mirror Vision Labs. But he's got a new NFT game coming out with Interplay, and he's setting up at South by Southwest. I forget the name of it. I was just trying to find it, but it's so. I know it was like Ghost announced, but whatever. So check that out if you're there. If you're not there, somebody who is local to me, righteousrhinos.com. They have an NFT drop. They want to support Rhinoceros, right? They want to save the white rhino with NFTs. So that's pretty cool. That's my profile pic. That rhino with the mushroom and that.
Oh, cool.
That's that collection. They're over on Solana. And then my childhood friend, good family friend of mine, Ashley Green, has an NFT project too called Frigits. And so they're at frigits.com. You might know her as I think Alice Cullen from Twilight. So that's cool. It's like a food-based thing. So those are cool. And then what we've got going on, you can find out this is in a few hours, honestly. In 2 hours and 15 minutes, we will be having our DIN DAO governance call, which is a weekly every Thursday. So Joe and I are going to talk about DIN stuff.
DIN DAO discussion.
DIN DAO discussion. Yep, at 3 Eastern and noon Pacific. So check us out. We will be on DIN and the YouTubes and the Twitters and I don't know what else. So yeah, check us out.
Cool.
Perfect. Great.
DIN DAO shindig. So just outside of the stuff that we're doing with Rivet, and we've entered phase 2 on our rollout of Cardinal. So that means if you're signed up, you are opted in automatically to test nets on Cardinal. This will be lasting until we're 100% certain that we can turn off the opt-out, and then we'll be moving into the automatic opt-in for mainnets, and then that's coming. But outside of that, with Rivet, you'll notice that instead of no war this week, I changed my tag to unconditional peace, which is my new answer to no war. And the idea is this: we can actually build our own peace between people without any of the nation states having a say, right? This is a call to not demonize individuals. This is a call to recognize that there are people who are just like you in Ukraine, people who are just like you in Russia, and they're just people, right? They are part of a group of folks who didn't decide to do this and aren't part of pursuing it. And so I urge you all to call for unconditional peace, because this is stupid. We shouldn't be fucking killing each other with machines that nobody would buy if nation states didn't sponsor the killing of people with them. I think there's a lot of power to that idea. So that's my percent.
You know what the funniest thing is? If anybody who grew up in the Cold War, a 1985 song by Sting, and "The Dream of the Blue Turtles," I think it was his first solo album, right? I wonder if the Russians love their children too. Anyway, it's an interesting thing. It's just like this weird repeat with a flip side. Oh, and one last thing that was brought up that I actually want to know what you guys think about this, so we can talk about it after or whatever. But there was something that was released about the Russian officers' manual, the official officers' manual. If you've seen what was in that, it's like, what? It's crazy. So anyway, we can talk about it later. Sean. What is
Sean, geez, so much heavy stuff you guys are dropping.
Sean's got a new show coming up with us, I think it sounds like.
Huh?
Sean's got
another show, yeah.
Us, it sounds like.
I have a show tonight. I think a time that I don't remember. But me and the guys from Consent of the Governed are going to have a chat. I don't know what it's going to be about, but it's always very good. Tomorrow, I'm going to be on Rice TVX with the Crypto Rewind, like every week. We're going to really focus on the executive order most of the hour. not sure who our guest is.
That'd be good. That'd be great.
It's Greg. If we know a guest, it's going to be Greg.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah.
Excellent.
If not,
Yep, it's going to be fun.
Next week. I'm pretty sure.
Let us
I think
know.
it's probably going to be Greg tomorrow.
Let us know. We should make sure you repeat it because I want to actually watch it. I just haven't had.
Rewind's on Friday, right?
Yeah, Crypto Rewind's on Friday at 7 Eastern.
Okay.
It's after Around the Blockchain on BitBoy's channel because Rice is out there. I want to also tell everyone that if you're going to order merch from Dragonchain, it's going to take a long damn time because I still don't have my stuff.
What?
Yeah, 2 weeks.
Oh, that's supply chain. I'm gonna blame the Russians on this one.
Okay, yeah, that is it. I ordered right at the beginning of the conflict, and they were like, "Screw Sean and his mug."
Well, no,
I'm going to be drinking my.
It's Ukrainian cotton. It's fine Ukrainian cotton, and really we just can't get it. We have to get another supply. We have to go somewhere else. and then the fuel costs. I mean, it's like the freaking Russians.
It's being brought by Russian tanks.
All the prices are going to go up.
Sean, I've got it on the calendar for tomorrow. So
okay.
Yeah.
What else? That's about it.
to pay more to get it.
I've got a bunch of stuff I'm trying to get out. I like Greg's idea, just talking about that. When you break things down to where it's so simple, it's like people won't buy this. It's just for killing other people. And I think it's not like we're not exploring the Earth anymore. We're kind of done. I mean, we're actually looking at going somewhere else, which I think we have to go somewhere else because eventually, if we don't screw up this place, which is stupid, because we're basically talking about we have to leave here because we fucked it up so bad. But it's going to end eventually. There's no argument about that. You can ask scientists and they'll argue all day long about everything, but none of them will argue that one day this planet's gone, our sun's going to go out. So we have to leave here.
We have not out of the solar system by then, man. It's too late.
Man.
Yeah, so we have to find a way to venture out.
And we might be the way life
we
gets.
We can't do that if we all don't get along with each other. We can't bring that noise out into the universe. If there is other people out there, they won't let it happen. So we need to get our shit together. And
there's a out there too looking at us saying, "I don't know."
Yeah, like, hey,
if we're the only ones, imagine that.
What if they're like, "Hey, everything's cool, leave them alone," but once they go past this point, then just kill them all because they'll infect us. I mean, we gotta get our shit together and fix this. So we all
and so
there's no
there's
reason not to.
If we're the only ones, we might have to be the people who bring life to the universe.
Yeah.
Yes. And while
Dune is basically we're all humans, but it's so far in the future that all these planets are from, and they're like, we don't know. We think we came from somewhere called Earth, a mythical place. That might be great. That would be wonderful, but we can't do that until we get
And while everyone waits for the heat death of the universe, make sure you go to dragonchain.store, buy some merch. Our strategy actually is that with the inflation and everything else, we think that like cereal and grains, we're just going to reduce the sizes. And that way, it's the same price.
I already can't buy shit. There's only like a 2x.
I haven't heard that about textiles. That's pretty funny, right? Okay, so
those get smaller.
Next week, at least go WBRT layer, din.social, and I think it's din.social/L/WBRT. I'm pretty sure. Make sure you go in. Next week's episode is Layer 2 Zero Knowledge Roll-Up Solutions and anything surrounding that discussion area. So go ask some questions there. That'll be super interesting, especially anybody who's into scalability and everything else.
We should try to get Austin on for that because he's fascinating to listen to on this topic.
Okay, that's awesome. All right, very good. Let's do it. And share this episode. The more it gets out there, the more hosts and topic contributors will get. And whoever proposed this entertainment, I can't remember who proposed it. We should pull that up every week, right? They should be called out at the beginning. We should all praise the person that proposed the topic at the very start of the show.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Whoever did it, I want to do this again. Praise. I think entertainment should be a recurring topic because
Me too.
We barely scratched the surface, right?
Yeah.
We didn't talk about food.
Yes. Oh yeah, no joke. That's really good. Very good point.
Oh,
Especially this is America. We didn't talk about food as entertainment.
Yeah, it
Anyway,
is. I guess in some cultures that is, huh?
McDonald's and Coke was mentioned though, but that was in the pre. Anyway,
nobody's yet heard my idea for NFT recipes, but
I'll also be hanging out with Bill Gibson and Mel Brooks this weekend.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, and yeah, and we do want to hear more about hopefully close that deal on whatever the human trafficking thing is with Kuchar, and then bring him on next week, and we can help him improve whatever he's doing. Sorry, but like, comment, subscribe.
Wait, hold on. I do want to say
People
something.
coin is
Remember I
already
brought
taken.
up Russell Brand last week.
Oh yeah,
he did a video. Oh my God! Did you watch it on cryptocurrency?
I didn't see. I saw the thumbnail. I didn't get time to watch it. I was going.
He's like, you know what? I was ignorant and I thought cryptocurrency was what I was told about. But you know what? Whenever governments are starting to try to make their own with central banks and governments are trying to go after it, that's when I perk up and I think, oh, this shit does work. It works and these people are scared. Now I'm interested. And now I can admit that I was ignorant. And I was like, whoa. So it's a good video. Check it out.
That's awesome.
That's a good take. Like, they're interested. Must be scared.
Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, all the rest of the things you're supposed to do wherever you're watching this, and above everything else, share it and don't hate. Right? It's all about love. Talk to you guys next week.
Stay free, guys.
Take care. Dinox, check out the Telegram. They'll tell you there.
But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing. Not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win. We choose to go to the moon.